Welcome to the LA Home Show. I am your host, Natasha Phillips, and today we have with us real estate extraordinaire, Markus Canter. Markus, we're so glad that you could join us today.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you for having us.
So I'd love to know how you got into the industry.
So how I got in the industry is kind of in a way, a love for three things. I, from a very early age, had a passion and a love for architecture. It later grew into a very similar kind of art form, which is for me film. And I've always been interested and I've always had love for people. And these three things ultimately were what led me into a career in real estate.
I have to ask how those three things led you into a career in real estate, because they do sound like they're on opposite ends of the spectrum and they draw you all together in real estate.
Excellent. Well, number one, so architecture for me is always, I grew up in LA, and it wasn't a place where in the 80s architecture pedigree was abundant. And I loved architecture. I loved the fact that you could create something out of nothing. Okay, and you could create something that would be experienced by people. And so people go into architecture and they surround themselves with it, and then there's an experience. Filmmaking also is an experience that we create for people, and it also draws people in. You know, when you create a movie and you create anything from the future to the past to a present, you're creating something that draws people into it. And I've always been interested in people from a point of view of how I could entertain them and how I could relate. And so I originally started in architecture. And I designed architecture at a very early age. From the time I was about 15, I did my very first model, and I did a complete design, built the model from the ground up. So I originally thought I was going to be an architect, and I eventually created a design build company where as an architectural designer, I did a number of significant homes at a pretty early age. And at a certain point, very early, about 21, as a person who studied architectural design, and also I studied theater design, it led me into an early career as a production designer for film. So those two things were kind of always in my life. Now, real estate was still down the road a bit. But how it led me there was that eventually, as a filmmaker, I was fascinated in seeing how I could make a difference through film. And I found my purpose early in life, which was to bring transformation to people's lives. And as a filmmaker, that's what interested me. I could tell stories that would help, people think about how they could improve their lives, maybe give them some sort of insight to themselves. And so I went down this road of being a filmmaker. And it was actually later on, about 5 times, I had different people say to me, you would be a great realtor. And it all started with the first time where I was designing a house and somebody wanted me to come and look at a house for them to do it as a spec home. Okay? And as a spec home, I ended up doing that, and they would ask me the questions like, well, what do you think this house would be worth? And how do you envision this house adding more value? So I did that for a while, and eventually that led me to people saying, you're really doing the job of a realtor. And so eventually it wasn't until the 5th person, I remember specifically, the 5th person to say, Markus, you should do real estate, was actually my life partner and business partner and the mother of my child, who is Chrissy St. James. And at that time she said, you're doing this amazing house and you just did all these things that I couldn't imagine doing. You have a unique skill in it and you should try this. And I did, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. So the two of you still work together today, don't you?
Absolutely.
So how do you combine all of these on a day-to-day basis?
How do I combine?
The film and the real estate and the design, because that's obviously your passion. So
Yeah.
you're
So, I've always followed three passions, like I said. So, architecture, film, and people. My love for all three of them has been fulfilled in real estate. It's an amazing. I'm amazingly blessed to be in a business where I can help make a difference to my clients' lives, where I can wake up and I'm excited to do what I do because I know I'm bringing transformation and that I'm growing with my clients and that I'm helping them go from point A to B to C in their life. So they all work together beautifully because I love architecture and I specialize in architectural properties. Filmmaking gave me the skills of storytelling that I use every day, and I think it's also what sets me apart and St. James Canter, our team, apart, is that we really focus on telling the story of each property in such a way that we already know the demographic before we even begin, and we're able to focus on, by putting the right energy out, telling the right story, we have consistently brought the best user, the best buyer to properties through our storytelling. And so, and ultimately, and the last important agreement, part of this is people. My favorite part of real estate is that I get to create relationships, long-lasting relationships with people who, I treat as family. And, over a long period of time, my business has grown because my clients' lives have grown.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So I know you work with a lot of developers. Do they still come to you and request your advice and right from the beginning of the project?
I hope that they do. And I mean, in other words, yes, they do. I work with developers every day. We're just launching, Chrissy and I are the founding directors of the New Homes division for Berkshire Hathaway. It's the first time ever division for Berkshire Hathaway in California. And we're focused on providing a environment that is different than what has been done before, and with a focus on being at value and also present from the very beginning all the way through the end, so that we can ensure our clients are not just building beautiful properties, but that they use our experience in having done so many deals and have heard the conversation for so many years of what people like and don't like. And there's so many mistakes that people can make that end up costing people money, later on in the process of selling their property.
So what's been one of your most interesting deals that you've worked on?
So many interesting deals. My favorite deal is where it all began. The whole love story of real estate began at a home on Foothill, which was an amazing A. Quincy Jones property. It's actually the home where I met my wife, Chrissy St. James, and where our story in real estate began. Number one, it's probably my favorite property of all time. It's just a very elegant and grand, but super minimal mid-century home that, had been sitting behind these gates for over 30 years. And, we put it on the market. It wasn't the first property we ever sold together, but we put it on the market at a time where the recession was still just coming to its end. We would find out that it was coming to its end. And it became a hot property, LA Times, and it became a multiple offer situation, and it sold for over asking. But the reason it was so special to me is that not only did I sell a property of a trusted client and friend, it was a property where my wife and I started our love affair. It's where it's probably, it's my favorite property of all time. And it was just a good omen for the very start that real estate was a great fit for myself. And every day I wake up grateful for it.
Oh, I love that. So what made that property, I mean, what from a design element was your favorite in that property?
So A. Quincy Jones is an architect who did really amazing homes. He did some for the masses, but this one was a Beverly Hills home. And it was it had this amazing, like, I think 20-foot pitched ceiling. And, typically when you see a Palm Springs home and you think of a pitched ceiling, you enjoy the volume. But this wasn't just volume, this was volume-esque. And, it was just walls of glass all the way across, looking out to your own private large backyard, with a knoll that went to a pool. And it was sublime. It's just, architecture can be perfect in its simplicity. And this was the best example of that I've ever seen.
Wow. So what recommendations do you have for future clients?
Well, it depends what you're talking about, buyers or sellers. So my recommendations to buyers is, it's not about the market. So often people think, they're waiting for the market to be better or worse or whatever they're looking for. But it's not. There's great deals in every market. We have found amazing properties for our clients no matter where the news is or what people are talking about. If you're a buyer and you're willing to put some TLC into a property, you can find a great property that's been sitting on the market for a number of months that wasn't properly positioned to succeed. So if you're a buyer, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that property that unfortunately wasn't prepared for top results and success. If you're a seller, you're on the other side of the equation. It's all about being prepared. It's about working with an agent who can help not spend all your money to get a property prepared. Like, for example, when we sold the A. Quincy Jones property, the total investment, and it was a fixer, the total investment that our client did was about $20,000 for a multi-million-dollar property. That went into painting the exterior of the house and to doing some landscaping. But that's all it took. So about doing the right preparation, bringing in the right elements so we can create a perfect experience and bring in the right buyer.
That's great. And where can people find you?
So I can be found very easily at www. Let me say that once again. I can be found very easily at www.stjamescanter.com, or my name, Markus Canter, Markus with a K and Canter with a C and an E. Yeah.
That's great. So do you have any tips for first-time home buyers?
So my tips for first-time home buyers, first and primary, is work with a great agent. These days, there are a lot of websites out there that offer very little service or expertise. Anybody can get the information today, but buyers don't pay realtors. Sellers do. And it's already in the contract. So you have a choice of thousands of agents. Interview your agents. Make sure they're the right fit for you, that they have your best interest at heart, they understand what it is like to create an extraordinary service experience, and that they're going to give you knowledge and education so that when you find the right property, you don't lose it. So work with a great agent is what I would tell first-time buyers, and create relationships, because somebody who has a family point of view and is going to treat you and add value to your life is what you want in a realtor.
And what's been the number one most important thing for you in growing your business and being a real estate agent?
It's a great question. So the number one thing in our business that has helped us succeed is, firstly, creating what I said before. It's an extraordinary service experience. So we've always put our clients first. And by putting your clients first and being at service to them and having a purpose of creating transformation in their lives, they will come back to you each and every time. By being authentic, by being present to your clients. I mean, I think I'm most proud in my career in that I did my largest transaction of all time and my smallest transaction of all time in the same year. And both of those clients felt that I was the only person that I didn't work with anybody else but them, that I brought the same level of service to both of them. And that's by doing that over and over and over again and always building on your success. When your clients win, you win. When they grow, you grow.
That's good advice. So as our final question, I'd love to know, what are you most excited about right now? It could be in your personal or work life, or both.
I wake up every morning excited. I jump out of bed. And I practice gratitude. So the simplicity for me is just to keep being grateful for my family, for my friends, for my clientele, for having a roof over my head and food in my belly. So, that's what I'm grateful for. And for me, all that really matters is that I'm moving forward in life in such a way where I can continue to be of value, that I can live a purpose-driven life. And that's what I'm most excited for, is to keep growing, one client at a time, one friend at a time, one house at a time, one day at a time.
That's wonderful. Markus, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching the LA Home Show, where we discuss all things real estate, interior design, and much, much more.